So here's the deal. It's Monday. We're back with small ball. I want to thank you guys so much, first and foremost, for the recent support. And unfortunately, last week we had a couple missed shows, and you guys know all of that. So I apologize. We're back. It's Monday. We got 4 packed shows this week. Baseball is back. Spring training is underway. We have some stuff to talk about on that front. We have a lot of other stuff to talk about. We missed a Tuesday top 10 last week. We're going to get to that today and do one, of course, tomorrow on Tuesday. We have an AL East predictions video segment coming at you today. And later in the week, we're going to move on probably to the NL Central. Then we'll finish up the AL West next week. I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the draft prospects today, and I'll get to more on that in a second. And it's going to be a very good show. So, again, I apologize for missing last week, but we're back. And a reminder to drop some comments on my channel because we're doing a Q&A this week. And I'm going to wait until I get enough comments to talk about. I have a few so far, but I want to get a couple more to have some more talking points, shall we say. And before we begin, we must notify the world. So I'm going to do that as we speak. I'm going to notify the world on the Small Ball Instagram. And if you don't follow that already, you should, because I notify the world when we're live. So we are live with an exclamation point. You always got to have the exclamation point, because if you don't, then it's not as good. So there we go. Beautiful. So again, I'm so excited to be back. We haven't had a show in a week. It's been actually, which is a very long time. My hair is doing all kinds of stuff right now, but that's okay because we have more important stuff to talk about. So let's get down to baseball. So baseball's back. We all understand that. Garrett Cole had his first appearance as a Yankee today. We've had a lot of prospects doing some cool things. It's unfortunate that not all the games are televised, but that's all right. So spring training's back. Nothing particularly interesting so far. But of course, we'll keep you updated if anything happens. And so today is a day. It's a day full of lists, and you guys have been very much asking for the lists. You guys like the lists, the Tuesday top 10s, the predictions, stuff like that. We have a bunch of lists coming at you today. It's not so much me venting like a couple of the shows last week and the week before. We got lists coming at you today, which has its pros and its cons, and hopefully for many of you, more pros than cons. So I'm going to start off with my predictions for the American League East. So we finished the National League. I had in the National League, we got the Dodgers top seed. Then I got the Braves, followed by the Reds, and the 2 wild card teams are the Diamondbacks and the Cardinals, the AL East. Here we go. Number 5, the bottom of the division, I got the O's, right? So we all know the O's are going to struggle again. I think that, they're rebuilding, obviously, but this year haven't really added anything substantial. You got some veteran guys that, hopefully can help this young class kind of mature, but there isn't really a lot of talent, on the rise at the current moment. Of course, we have Adley Rutschman. It appears to be one of the top prospects in this game. But at the major league level, really nothing to boast over there in Baltimore. So they're going to try out a lot of different pieces, especially in the rotation and also the bullpen. And there's going to be a lot of turnover. There's going to be a lot of guys that have an opportunity. Probably we'll be on the lookout for a couple breakout seasons. Maybe they move some guys that are having some good years at the deadline and try to replenish that farm system, because not only is this major league roster not good, but the farm system is pretty lacking as well. So they set the record by far for most home runs allowed in a season. Wouldn't be surprised if they do that again. I think that it's a complete wasted season for them. There isn't really anyone on their roster right now that is going to be part of their long-term plan, maybe outside of Paul Fry. So definitely excited to see Rutschman come up. Don't think it's going to be this year. A lot of people are hoping and thinking that it will be, but let's not forget that he was drafted only about 6 months ago. So I think he has some time, and I mean, rushing him into it doesn't really do anybody any good. So I have the O's winning 55 games, going 55 at 107, and they're going to struggle this year for sure, especially in this strong division. Although, as I'm going to talk about in a second, I don't think the AL East is as strong as it's been in years past, or as strong as a lot of people think it's going to be. Number 4, I have the Blue Jays. So I actually have the Blue Jays going 71 and 91. Now, I think their Vegas over-under is 75.5, if I remember that correctly. I'm not as high on the Jays this year as a lot of people are, for a couple of reasons. Number 1, this is still an extremely young roster. And not only is it an extremely young roster, but all of the rookies that we're talking about and hoping that have their breakout seasons, be that Cavan Biggio, Vladdy Jr., Bo Bichette, a lot of these guys, they're still rookies this year, right? They didn't get enough service time to have their rookie season in 2019. They're still going to be extremely raw in a division with a lot of good starting pitching. I don't think that these guys are going to be ready to make that leap yet. A lot of people think they will. That's why they have the Jays improving a lot this year. To me, they're still very raw and have a ton of potential, but they're still rookies. Let's not forget that. In maybe the best division in baseball in terms of starting pitching. So not sure they're quite ready to make that leap. Pitching staff-wise, they add Ryu, who I think is now turning into an ace level or a 2 kind of a guy, right? His breakout season, of course, was an anomaly in terms of the rest of his career, and hopefully he can continue to have that level of success. But let's not forget that over the course of his career, he's been a 3 and at times even a 4 in the rotation. So, of course, he has the ability, like we saw last year, to be an ace, but I'm not so sure that he's the guy to save this pitching staff and bullpen, which has been very, very lacking over the last couple of years. Now, Ken Giles, I think, is a piece that at the back end of the bullpen can really help them, but I wouldn't be surprised at all if he was traded at the deadline. So second half, their bullpen probably going to struggle, and I don't think they're going to be at all in a position to contend at any point in the season. So I don't think that they're going to stray from the rebuild and add talent. So I think this is their roster at best. I think by the end of the season, it'll actually be a little bit worse. I have them lower than most people do. The biggest reason, probably, outside of the immaturity, the pitching staff, this defense is going to really, really struggle. And not only is it not as talented as a lot of other teams, but again, these guys are raw, and they're not particularly great defenders, and they don't really project to improve. I mean, Vladimir Guerrero Jr. has shown an ability to hit any pitch in any count, any distance. He's never going to be a great defensive player. He doesn't move well enough for that. Cavan Biggio's hands are not great. Bo Bichette is athletic, but also his hands are not great, and he's raw, and he's not very fundamentally sound at short. Their infield defense is really bad. They don't have Kevin Pillar, who, over the last 5-10 years has made their outfield defense really what it's been. I mean, he's been an incredible piece for them defensively. They don't have him anymore. Gurriel Jr., struggles defensively. I don't think this team is going to make a lot of plays, and I think it's only going to hurt this young and struggling pitching staff. So I have them winning 71 games and coming in fourth in the AL East. The Red Sox third. Now the Red Sox still have a lot of talent after trading away Betts and Price. I think that this rebuild mentality is going to hinder them a little bit, which I don't think is necessarily a problem because they're not really going to contend anyway now that they traded Betts and Price. New manager Ron Roenicke also is probably going to take some time to get going and get accustomed to what it takes to be, the manager of probably the second or third biggest market in Major League Baseball. Probably won't take as long as most managers will because he's been a bench coach for a very long time. He's familiar with the organization, and I really like that hire. And I think that the Red Sox actually have an opportunity to really stretch their win total past what a lot of people think it's going to be. So I think that they're one of the less projectable teams in that regard. I think that they have a really high ceiling as far as a rebuilding team goes, but also a really low floor if they continue to move those pieces or if the mentality really, isn't something that they're able to deal with at the major league level. A lot of teams, when they start going down this not quite rebuilding but retooling and cutting down on salary kind of a path, a lot of players struggle with that, and I'm not so sure how they're going to respond. I have them going 78 and 84, going under 500 for the first time in a long time. To me, I think that they're clearly the third best team in this division. Might have more talent, especially offensively, than number two. But again, it's the culture, it's the new manager, and the pitching staff, especially now without Price, is probably the most banged up staff in baseball. With Eovaldi has had elbow problems for the last couple of years and is struggling right now. Chris Sale, of course, as we know, does not have a healthy arm. And this is probably the least healthy staff in the league. And, a lot of guys are going to be coming in and out. They haven't found a closer that they can rely on in the last 2 to 3 years. So they're going to give up a lot of runs. And I think losing Betts is going to be even more impactful than a lot of people think. 73 and 84, Red Sox third. The Tampa Bay Rays, to me, are the second best team in the AL East. A lot of people have them contending for or even grabbing a playoff spot. To me, losing Tommy Pham is going to hurt a lot. I think Charlie Morton has developed himself into a 1 or a 2. I don't think he's quite, a solidified 1 at this point. But I think he helps them. I don't think that they necessarily have a bona fide ace. I think Charlie Morton has the potential to be. I think Blake Snell has the potential to be. I think that their pitching staff and obviously what they've been able to do with the opener and the bullpen is very deep. They're very deep. And their pitching staff is deep. They throw hard. All around, they don't really command the ball very well. They have a lot of guys that struggle with command. They walk a lot of batters, which is especially impactful, obviously, late in games, which has hurt them over the last couple of years. I think Kevin Cash has done a very good job with the pitching staff. But losing Tommy Pham, I mean, he's a great player, but he's also really helped balance out this lineup, which is very power-centric. I think defensively they're not great either. I think Kevin Kiermaier is on the decline. I think that they have no stability whatsoever at catcher, losing Travis d'Arnaud to free agency. So that's not really something that's easy to fix quickly. I think that they have a lot of power. I think that they have the ability to beat any team in the league on any given night. I think that offensively in the staff that they really have the ability to compete with anyone on a given night. But over the course of this season, I think the contact rate is going to hurt them or lack thereof. I think that Their pitching staff is deep, but struggles at times, especially late in games. So, and losing Tommy Pham again is really going to hurt. Now you add Renfroe, but that doesn't help the balance of the lineup. It hurts it, adding more power and less contact to the mix and worse defense. So to me, it comes down to no stability at the catching position, which is something that they're going to fix quickly and haven't really shown that they're interested in doing that. And it's a lack of contact and command that's going to hurt them late in games. So late in games, offensively, they're going to strike out more than they probably should. And defensively, on the pitching side, they're going to walk a lot more batters late in games than I think they should. So I have them going 85 and 77. They have a lot of talent. And like I said, they can compete with any given team on any given night. But I think the over-under on them is 90, if I'm not mistaken. I would definitely take the under on that. I have them coming in second in the AL East, but only winning 85 games. Now, the Yankees, to me, are still the best team in baseball. I think that offensively, they're not as talented as the Dodgers. I think even in the pitching staff and the starting rotation, they might not quite be as talented as the Dodgers, but they're a lot deeper than the Dodgers, both offensively, defensively, and in the pitching staff. And, of course, the bullpen is the major edge that they have over them. And I think that this division is not what people think it is, and I think that they are going to get a lot of wins. They won 17 games last year against Baltimore. I think they're going to win a lot of games against Toronto. I think they're going to win a lot of games against Boston. And I think the Rays are probably not going to be able to compete with them, to the level of another second team in a division. So I have them going 105 and 57, 2 games ahead of what they were last year. I think that obviously they fixed their problem in not having a frontline ace. I think that they're even deeper than they were last year somehow, even though they were one of the deepest teams in baseball. And if they stay healthier than they did last year, obviously, the sky is the limit. So I have them actually as the best team in baseball. And obviously we'll talk about postseason stuff another time, but I think they're going to win a lot of regular season games, and I think they match up well against all the teams in the American League in the postseason as well. So, just to recap, Yankees, Rays, Red Sox, Blue Jays, Orioles, AL East predictions. I think I'm going to move on to the Central. Garrett Cole looked obviously great today, as he always does. I've said this on a couple occasions. I would go as far as to say he's the best player in Major League Baseball right now. If you look at, positionally, the impact that he's able to have compared to everybody else, I think his season last year was the best of any player in the game, really. And obviously, we've talked about Mike Trout's popularity, and I don't think that he is quite as distanced from everybody else. I do think he's the best position player, but I think there are other players that bring similar things to the table. And to me, with Garrett Cole, the combination of stuff, pitchability, command, clutch, it's really, really hard to find a guy who's able to do that many things. And I think Walker Buehler is in that conversation. I think Justin Verlander could be in that conversation with a little bit better playoff success. And honestly, giving up a couple too many home runs and cracking in important spots. To me, Garrett Cole is the best player in baseball, and he joins probably the best team in baseball. So I think it would be a surprise to see them with double-digit wins. So that's what I got. AL East predictions now. We're going to move on. This is a Tuesday top 10. Now, this was scheduled for last Tuesday. I obviously didn't have a show that day, so I'm going to do it today. We got top 10 third basemen in the league. So we're continuing with our top 10 of each position leading up to the season. I'm going to do one tomorrow as well on Tuesday, hence the name. That's going to be left fielders, and each week, Tuesday, probably, we are going to finish out those positions. We still obviously got left, center, and right, starter, reliever, and if I decide to do DH, I will, but I'm not sure. So, top 10 third baseman in the league. Here we go. So, as always, no honorable mentions. We're going to strictly keep it to 10. And I've talked about over the last couple of Tuesday top 10s that I've done, some of the difficulties that I've had in picking these lists. I've spent a very, very long time debating myself on certain spots. This was actually probably the easiest list to come up with. I'm not really sure why, but I think there are 10 clear players in their own tier, and I think that even ordering them was not particularly difficult. So here we go. I have Eduardo Escobar as the 10th best third baseman in baseball. Now, to me, he represents really a versatile player. He is versatile defensively. He's able to play third, second. He can probably slide in there at short if need be. Now, career 260, 747 hitter. Last year, 269, 35 bombs, 118 RBIs in a mediocre lineup. His K rate is very good for somebody with 35 home runs. He only struck out 107 times. 94 runs is really good, especially for a guy who doesn't run particularly well. His base running ability is significantly above average. 831 OPS, so sort of a breakout season. Defensively, for somebody who doesn't move particularly well and is not as athletic as others in the league, very good hands, very good defensive abilities. To me, he's extremely versatile. He's extremely well-rounded. He can hit for power. He can defend. He has a pretty good arm. He doesn't run well, but his base running ability makes up for that. So Eduardo Escobar, to me, especially now this lineup is improving, and I think he's really going to have a good season, and I think he's going to be a big part of their like I said, I think they're going to make the postseason, and I think he's going to be a big part of that. Number 9 is Jose Ramirez. So taking a step back, not only this year, but also in 2018, he's a career 280 hitter with an 837 OPS. Now, last year he hit 255 with an 806 OPS, only 23 home runs, but let's not forget he's only 1 year removed now from a 39 home run, 105 RBI season, also a season in which he hit for a 939 OPS and had 106 walks. So I think he's still very well respected around the league. His defense is not great at all, but I think in big spots it actually gets a little bit better. He's not an athlete, but he has solid hands and he can throw pretty well. I think that he is very good at hitting high-level pitching. I think that he has just as many really, really good moments as anybody else really on this list. I think the consistency is not there. The defense is not there. And obviously seemingly on the decline. 2016 and 17, he actually had a post, can I say that? Post 300? I think it's more like, well, the opposite of sub. What's the opposite of sub 300? Is it post? I don't know. But he hit above 300 in 2016 and 2017, 318 and 312 to be exact. So this is a hitter that has shown the ability to hit 318 and the ability to hit 39 home runs. So I think if he can put that all together, obviously, a very much feared and well-respected offensive player. Defensively, he struggles, but he is, he has effort. He plays with energy, and I think he actually gets a little bit better in big spots. Intangibly, I think, he's very, very solid and is a big part of the championship appearance that they had, the World Series appearance that they had in 2016, and I have him 9th. Number 8, been in trade talks recently. I've been very critical of him over his entire career, But he has to be on this list because raw power, tremendous athleticism for his size, and I think actually improving in the areas that I have critiqued him on over the course of his career. That's Kris Bryant, who has posted a career 284 batting average, 282 last season. Now, what I've been critical about him of is defense, is strikeout rate, and ability to hit high-level pitching and high-level velocity. Now, defensively, he's known to be a versatile defender who can play third, who can play left, who can play right. He's been slotted in there at center. He can play first if need be. The problem that I have with that is he's not particularly good and impactful in any of those places. So versatility, to me, only comes into play when you actually provide value in different places, not just happen to be put in the lineup by your manager in different places. In the infield, he does not have particularly good hands. He has little to no range. His arm is not what it should be for a player of his athleticism and size. In the outfield, he runs okay. His routes are not good at all and doesn't have a strong enough throwing arm to compensate for his deficiencies in tracking the ball in the air and on the ground. So defensively, I really have my issues with him. The other issue that I've had with him over his career, like I said, is his strikeout rate, which has actually improved this past season. For the first time in his career, he had fewer strikeouts than games played, which is, not something that we should be celebrating to finally get under that benchmark. But obviously, it's an improvement. And with all of that said, obviously, the outside of Aaron Judge, probably the easiest power of anyone in the league, in terms of the ability to generate power without a high effort swing. And I think that alone, and he's getting older and he's kind of not really in that young player category anymore, but still I think gives him the opportunity to improve offensively, especially in the areas that I just talked about. The raw power is there. He's, for somebody with that low contact rate, hitting for 284 career batting average is very, very strong. Again, it's defense that holds him back to me. It's the swing and miss to his game, the ability to hit high-level pitching. I mean, he hasn't really shown the ability in big spots against big level or high-level arms to, really take a step up, take a step forward. So I think those kind of things hold him back, and I think he's a lot lower than what a lot of people would have him on this list. But to me, he's eighth. Can't be denied that he's consistently 280s, 270s with 35 to 40 home runs. So the power is there. I don't like the defense at all. I don't like the swing and miss. But I think that there are some tools there that are very, very difficult to navigate for a pitcher. 7 is Justin Turner. So Justin Turner, to me, over his entire career, has looked like an average player, both defensively and offensively, who shines in big moments, who just seems to have more success than I anticipate. So I think it's finally time for me to give him the respect that he deserves. He's hit for a career 292 batting average, 290 last season. He was post 300 in 2017 and 2018. And for a guy who doesn't move that well, his defense is pretty good. It's above average. 837 OPS in his career and 881 last year. He actually was over 900 in both 2017 and 2018. So this is a guy that continues to produce and also continues to produce in the postseason. And another really big factor that I think makes him a really valuable player is he's a right-handed hitter that hits right-handed pitching very, very well. So it's difficult to navigate him in the middle, in the front, in the back of that lineup. Wherever you want to slot him, he's going to be productive. He can hit lefties. He can hit righties. He can hit high-level lefties and righties. So the clutch is there. The intangibles are there. The defense for someone of his stature is better than it should be. And if he continues to get hits and produce in big spots, he's got to be high up on this list. So he's only 7 because doesn't do much on the base paths. Defense is good, but not great. I think that there is a ceiling, deficiency, and he's getting up there. So I think maybe this year or next he's going to start to come down a little bit. But I might have him a little lower than I should on this list. I think this is a big year for him to prove that. Justin Turner, number 7. I said Justin, right? I didn't say Trey. I'm pretty sure I said Justin, but in case I didn't, Justin Turner, 7. Rafael Devers is 6. So he is a very difficult player to analyze for me because the offense is obviously there and the defense is obviously not. And you guys know how much I like defense, but 311, 32 bombs, 115 RBIs, and 109 runs with a 916 OPS is impossible to overlook. That's what he did last year. A left-handed hitter in Fenway Park putting up those numbers is incredible. And the thing that stands out to me about Devers, especially at such a young age, is his ability to hit in big spots against big level arms, both lefties, both righties. We saw a huge, huge home run in the Bronx off of Aroldis Chapman as a second-year player, and he continues to produce in big spots. He continues to produce against whoever is thrown out there against him. Now, defensively, not where I'd like it to be. I think he has shown signs of maybe improving on that front. He is not an athlete per se, but he has extremely good hands, compared to his other defensive tools. His arm is passable. His hands are incredible, really, to be honest, but he doesn't move well enough to project as an elite defensive player. So I don't think the defense will ever quite be where it should be for a top 5 or 4 player on this list. But I think if it improves and he's able to become average or better, and he keeps putting up these offensive numbers, it'll be impossible to leave him out of the top 5. But I had to leave him out of the top 5 because the defense is not there. And over his career, 282, 837 OPS is good, not great. But to me, it's about the clutch. It's about the ability at a young age to thrive in big spots against the best pitchers in the game, lefties, righties, whatever the case may be. And people overlook how difficult it is for a lefty to hit in Fenway Park. I mean, we talk about all the time how easy it is for a lefty to hit in Yankee Stadium or a righty to hit in Houston, but we don't talk about the other side of it where you're a lefty hitting the ball to right field 380 feet away. So, again, defense is not there. K rate is very good for someone with 32 home runs. 129 runs for a guy who does not run well at all speaks to his base running ability, his intangibles. His baseball IQ is incredible. I think he still has a lot left in the tank in terms of potential, and I think he's going to be an elite player in this game. Number 4 and 5, I kept flip-flopping. I couldn't decide, but I've come to the conclusion. So Matt Chapman is my 5. Obviously, we know what he's able to do defensively. He has clearly distinguished himself as the best defensive third baseman in the game. In my opinion, the best defensive infielder in the game, maybe even the best defensive player in the game. Platinum Glove Award in 2019. So defensively, he is an absolute beast. His put-out total is extremely high. Now, a lot of that is because of the expansive foul territory in Oakland. Obviously, that helps with being able to catch pop-ups, but he tracks the ball so well. He is the best person in the league, quite frankly, to play that position, third base for the A's, with that massive foul territory. His hands are incredible. His arm, especially for his size, is incredible. He is athletic. And finally, now this year, it looked like his bat was starting to catch up with his glove. Now, first half was very, very good. Second half kind of took a step back. But he showed the ability and the potential to be a 270, maybe even 280 hitter, and he finished the season with 31 bombs. So 848 OPS, by the way. His K rate is a little high, but the power is meeting it, so it's okay. I can deal with that. Obviously, the defense is incredible. I think if he's an average hitter, that defense plus average hitting makes him a great player. I think if he steps it up a notch with his offense, which he had not really shown the ability to do until last season, but now we see what he's capable of. Maybe not going to happen per se next year or at all, but we see that he is capable of being a good hitter. Maybe not a great hitter, but good hitter plus top 3 defender in the league. That's a great player, in my opinion. So he is 5. Number 4 now is Josh Donaldson. So what distinguishes Donaldson for me over Chapman is the clutch factor and the experience. He is a veteran who has taken kind of a step back, but sort of figured out how to compensate for kind of a decline in athleticism. He's getting up there and he saw his abilities sort of diminish, but learned how to deal with that, learned again how to hit mechanically rather than relying on his athleticism, which kind of carried him for the first half of his career. Now I think is actually going to take another step forward. It's kind of like the CC Sabathia effect, where you lose a lot of what makes you great. Now you actually have to learn how to be technically sound. And I think he's done that. He's still putting up incredible power, 37 home runs in 2019, career 273 hitter. Now, 259 hitter last year. Career 900 OPS. That's incredible. 878 last year is still very, very good for a guy who's on the decline. So I actually think decline, now more mechanically sound, probably stepping back into what he used to be. Defensively, especially for a veteran and a guy who is fairly athletic but not special, is very, very good. His arm is incredible. Back when he was in Oakland, he had to play that third base position that we just talked about with that expansive foul territory, and he was one of the best I've ever seen at tracking pop-ups, especially in foul territory. So his hands aren't terrific. His arm is very good. I think his reaction time and his what's it called? I can't think of the word. His reaction time is very, very good. He tracks the ball in the air very, very well. His hands kind of limit him defensively, but offensively, he can hit velocity. He can hit breaking balls just as well, if not better than anybody in baseball. So it's really, really difficult to pitch to him, which people underestimate. There's not really a hole in his offensive approach. He can hit fastballs. He can hit breaking balls. He can hit changeups, lefties, righties. He's very, very tough out with power. So he's 4. Now, if you saw my show last Monday, I talked extensively for about 20 minutes about Nolan Arenado and my issues with Nolan Arenado. I want to refocus my attention on the positive qualities in his game, because I spent about 20 to 25 minutes talking about the reasons why I think they should trade him and the reasons why he's not the right fit for that organization. And frankly, some of the reasons why we think of him a little bit too highly. But his talent, offensively, defensively, I mean, you can't really leave him out of the top three. And I think, honestly, and we talked about this, on the road in his career, he's a 250 hitter. So if he wasn't in Colorado, that may or may not be the player that, he would be. And I think what saves him from that criticism is his defensive ability. Because think about it. You take a hitter who could be extremely productive at home and could also be helped by playing in Coors Field in the scenario that he's in. So we don't really know, but we assume maybe that he is that kind of a player because of his defense. Because we think if he's such a good defender, he must be an all-around great baseball player, which I agree with. I actually think that athletically, his combination of athleticism, power, arm strength, I mean, maybe not quite the speed to be a five-tool player, but I think a five-tool player, if we're being honest. Defensively, he's right there with Matt Chapman. Offensively, obviously, it's hard to distinguish Rockies hitters from others, but the biggest thing to me with him is the clutch. He is absurdly clutch. He brings energy. I was critical of some of the disputes that he's had with his teammates over the course of his career, but all of that is generated from playing with a lot of energy, a lot of enthusiasm. He is a winner. He is a guy that I want on my team. I think he can lead a team. I really do. I think if you watch my video last week, I think I talked a little bit about his intangibles not quite being where I want them to be, but I think it's all stemming from a place of energy and passion. We saw him in the World Baseball Classic for the American team back in 2017, and he won a game by striking out. A game-tying run on a drop third strike, which he hustled to first base and slid in safely, got up and celebrated for about 20 minutes. So the passion, the intensity is there. The athleticism is there. The power is there. I've talked about, obviously, Coors Field helping him. I've talked about, obviously, at times maybe a little too much passion, not the right fit for that organization. So he's third because the strikeouts are a hair high, and obviously 250 career hitter on the road, but he can hit velo. He's probably the best curveball hitter in baseball. He's third because the next two guys have a lot of postseason success and success, obviously, in all ballparks. So I think he's an incredible player. Don't get me wrong, but he's third. 2 is Anthony Rendon. And a lot of people go back and forth on 1 and 2. I think it's close but clear. Rendon had one of the more impressive postseasons I've seen last season, obviously carrying an under-talented Nationals team to a title, winning 4 games on the road in Houston and being the absolute centerpiece of that. This was a team, the Nationals, who were last in the league in bullpen ERA and won in the regular season and won a title because pitchers just simply could not get this guy out in big spots. The clutch is there, the contact is, and plate discipline and approach is as good as anyone in the league. Power for somebody with that level of bat control is incredible. And the defense for somebody who's not particularly athletic is his reaction time is absurd. His hands are absurd. His arm is more than okay. Defensively, he's maybe not quite great, but very, very good. Offensively, he is absolutely elite. Clutch, veteran with experience, still has a lot of athleticism left in the tank. Very interested to see the impact that he can have on this Angels lineup. And I think that the Nationals are going to miss him a lot more than people are giving them credit. Anthony Rendon is 2. Number 1, again, I think this might be my third. No, it's my second Astro that I have at the top of one of these lists. And I'm just going to repeat myself. We're going to pretend, for the sake of these lists, that Astrogate didn't happen because it's too difficult to determine how much of an impact that really had. But you want to talk about complete player, 5-tool player. This is pretty much the definition. Defensively, fielding, arm, contact, power. There was a point in time where he looked like he was going to lead the American League in home runs, and he might not even be 6 feet tall. So versatility, I think should be the shortstop in Houston. Athletically, hands, arm, has every single tool you could ask for, including intangibles. Obviously, this cheating thing is difficult to understand, especially on a player level. But postseason production, obviously regular season production, and probably honestly still improving. And intangibly, in terms of what he's talked about in terms of his goals for this upcoming season and still looking to improve, obviously everybody's going to say that, but I truly believe that he is doing the necessary things to do that. I think I think I haven't done my MVP predictions yet, but there's a very good chance. No, but this cheating thing, that's going to hurt him. So I don't know. But I think last year, to be perfectly honest, I think he should have been the MVP of the American League. I think he had a better season than Mike Trout. His contact rate was better. Obviously, the power was a little bit lower. But if you look at it in every other respect besides power, Bregman was actually better. Defensively, he was better. Trout's defensive season was good, not great. Bregman's was elite. Contact was better. Obviously, more wins, which, we can talk about at another time. But Alex Bregman is number 1. So that's third base. Top 10. Tomorrow we will do left field. We have about 12 minutes left. And I want to get to and this is something that I wanted to hold off on until we saw more. But I want to do it now, and then we'll probably revise it later. So I'm very excited for it. And this is my MLB 2020 draft top 10. So this is not a mock draft, but if I were the GM of all these teams, this is who I would pick. Now, I understand that college baseball and the draft is not of as much interest as it is in other sports, as other things in the game. But I feel obligated to talk about this stuff because, A, there are people that really want to hear it. I personally am fascinated by the draft and by college and high school baseball. And for those who aren't really up for this kind of a conversation, I still also think that I think that I have an obligation to put this information forward and get people excited, because I'm going to talk about a lot of stuff that probably a lot of people don't know much about, but I think the more we talk about it, the more we analyze these high school and college players, I think it's better for our game. And I think the draft in football, the draft in basketball improves and contributes to the excitement about the leagues, right? And in baseball and hockey, not so much. So I think it's just as important. It's just as exciting. So we're going to talk about it. And if it's, if it's a lot of gibberish to you guys, I encourage you to do some research and not shy away from this conversation, but embrace it. So here we go, my top 10. And if you do know about the stuff I'm going to be talking about, then perfect, awesome. All the more power to you. And we only have 10 minutes to do 10 guys. I actually have 11, 12 guys that I want to talk about. So let's get to it. So the number one prospect to me in this draft, and this is actually, I forgot to mention, the weakest MLB draft class I've ever seen. It is not deep. It is not top heavy. Usually a draft is either top heavy or deep. This one is neither. I think it's a very good draft, relatively speaking, for high school prospects. The college prospects in this draft are really, really lacking. So here we go. Number one, and this is surprising, not a guy that's very high on a lot of lists. I have Jared Kelly, high school right-handed pitcher from Texas, as my top prospect. If I had the number one pick tomorrow, I would take Jared Kelly. Now he's 93 to 96, has touched 98 in his career. He's 18 years old, probably the best or second best changeup in this draft. And an 18-year-old right-handed pitcher with an advanced wipeout changeup is not something you see very often. And the changeup is something that a lot of pitchers have to catch up to, as they move into the high school, or rather the college and then the minor league ranks. It's something that holds a lot of pitchers back, and they have to spend time working on. He already has a plus-plus changeup, in my opinion. A lot of scouts see it as a plus. I think it's a plus-plus changeup. Also a very, very good, solid plus slider breaking ball with outstanding control. He already has the changeup in his arsenal ready to go. He can learn how to be a little bit more his pitchability, right, can improve a little bit. I think velocity even. He's touched 98 in his career. He's usually sitting 93, 94. But all-around stud. I think he could be a star. I really do. I think in the first round, we usually get 2 or 3 stars out of each first or top 10, excuse me. I think he could be a star pitcher. He's a little small for a guy who hopefully will throw that hard. But to me, Jared Kelly actually is the top prospect in this class. And he is not really high at all on anybody's lists, this high at least. I mean, a couple people have him in the top 10. But to me, Jared Kelly is someone that we're not talking about a lot. I have him as the top prospect in college. 2 is Austin Martin. So I think to me, I could go with him number 1. In the early parts of a draft, I look for a player who can change my franchise, right? I want to take a chance on a player who can change the outcome of a franchise and probably has a little bit lower of a floor and it's more of a risk. But once you get out of the first round, you're not really going to be finding players that are going to change a franchise. And obviously there are exceptions. But I think it's worth it to take that chance and then later in the draft get some more solid, safer options, right? Austin Martin kind of represents the opposite. I think he has the highest floor of anyone in this draft. He is going to hit for average at every level that he plays at. Defensively, he is going to be above average, not incredible, but above average at every level that he plays at. The ceiling to me is a little low. That's probably why I don't have him number 1, but he's going to hit. He's going to defend. The power is average and probably at the major league level will be okay. But Vanderbilt has pumped out incredible talent over the last couple of years. I think he's undersized for a guy who they're hoping will be kind of an all-around hitter. He's only 175 pounds right now. So I think he's going to hit for average. Not sure the power is going to be there, and the defense is good, not great, but his floor is incredible. Intangibles, he's going to win baseball games. I would take him 2. 3, and I didn't actually have him that high on this list until I thought about it a little more. But Max Meyer, the right-handed relief arm from Minnesota, I think there's always one standout reliever in each draft, right? I think that there's a huge emphasis on starting pitching. We don't see a lot of relievers get taken. There's always one that projects to be an elite back-end reliever, if not closer in Major League Baseball at some point. Max Meyer, to me, is what a future closer looks like. 93 to 95, late life, has touched 98, absolute wipeout slider, the best slider in this draft, maybe even best breaking ball in this draft. 2.11 ERA is obviously very, very, very good, not incredible. Tied a school record with 16 saves his sophomore year. He has a live arm. He has incredible movement, and he commands the ball very well for someone with such good stuff. He's big. He's long. He does not really project to have arm issues. I mean, his delivery is clean. I think to me, he is the closest thing to a future closer that I've seen in a while. So Max Meyer, I would actually take third because I think that he has a high ceiling, but also a very, very high floor. He's third. 4 is a guy that we would be taking a chance on, and that's Austin Hendrick, who I think has the ability to be a 5-tool player. And the power has been there. I mean, this is a Pennsylvania high schooler, left-handed swinging outfielder, for those of you who don't know. The power has been there for his entire high school career. I think that he is more athletic than most scouts give him credit for. So I think he has the ability to be I see him as like a potential Cody Bellinger type guy. Obviously, that's a pretty high standard, but that kind of persona of a guy who can hit the ball from loft and also run very, very well and defend very, very well. His arm is strong as well. He's a very good outfielder with athletic ability, but his defensive instincts, outfield instincts are very, very good. I think people underestimate them. So the ceiling is very high. Now, the floor is pretty low. His contact rate is not particularly good. And obviously in the high school ranks, if your contact rate is good, that doesn't project that well for the pros. And I think this is somebody who I would be taking a chance on, but I think it's worth it because I think he has the opportunity to be a legitimate 5-tool player. Austin Hendrick, I would take 4th. Now, we have the opposite coming in at number 5, a guy with not quite as high of a ceiling, but I think one of the highest floors in this draft, and that's Ed Howard, the high school shortstop from Illinois. So he is a little bit undersized at 6'2", 185, incredible athlete, runs extremely well, has a very strong throwing arm for his size. His offensive approach is very, very, very good. He's going to hit for average. He's definitely going to hit for average. The power is probably not even going to be average when all is said and done in the major leagues for him. So I think his floor is very attractive. I think that his athleticism, he's probably, one of, if not the best athletes in this draft. I think that, his hit tool is very, very good for somebody with that much athletic ability. I mean, a lot of times we see guys who are either athletic or mechanically sound. I think he's both offensively and defensively. So again, the ceiling maybe not quite there. I think that his hands have a bit of catching up to do in terms of, getting to where his athletic ability is. And his power is obviously not where we would want a top 5 pick to be. But Ed Howard, I think, is a very, very strong prospect who I would draft 5th. 6, look, Blaze Jordan was a 13-year-old hitter when he hit 2 500-foot home runs at Globe Life Park in Arlington in the youth home run derby. Power-wise, this is a guy that, I mean, when you think of like the analytics movement, right, and this power-centric approach, this guy could be the face of that movement. I mean, he generates so much power. He hit the ball over 500 feet twice at the age of 13, has won 2 high school home run or youth home run derbies. He wasn't even in high school. He was in middle school. At age 11 when he won his first home run derby, national home run derby, and then again at age 13, hit 2 balls over 500 feet with a metal bat, but 13 years old, 500 feet. Watch the videos. They're on YouTube. Upper Deck in Globe Life Park in Arlington. Obviously, his other tools have some catching up to do, but I talked about, taking a chance on a guy who could be special, and this kid is 17 with as much power as anyone I've seen in a draft in probably. I mean, honestly, I think coming into a draft as a high school prospect, he has more power than Aaron Judge did when he was a high school prospect. This kid is incredible in terms of his power. Defensively, he doesn't really have a position, so he's limited to first. His contact rate is not good, but it's better than somebody who really sells, who most guys rather, who really sell out for power. So I would take a chance on Blaze Jordan because I always look for one tool that stands out. Like if I can have a player that really stands out in one tool, I think it's worth taking a chance on him. There are a lot of guys who are solid all around, like an Austin Martin, but I think to really change the culture of a franchise and really be a special player, you have to have at least one tool that really, really stands out among your peers in the league. So obviously, his power is going to stand out at every level that he plays at, including T-ball. And I would take a chance on him 6. Now, it's a big chance because he doesn't defend well, he doesn't run well, and his contact has some catching up to do, but I would take that chance at 6 with Blaze Jordan. He's only 17 years old, and he honestly hits the ball farther than anyone I've ever seen. Now, 7 is another kind of raw athletic prospect, Casey Martin, the shortstop at Arkansas. I think Arkansas last year obviously was in the College World Series. I think they're going to make it back there this year. I think they have a really, really, really good team. Heston Kjerstad obviously leading the lineup. I think Austin Martin's actually a better prospect than Kjerstad because his athleticism is just as good as, if not better than anybody in this class. The fastest infield prospect probably in this class. He runs. He's graded 70 to 80 at times on in the run tool. He hit 345 as a freshman, so he's an incredible elite athlete with incredible hitting ability. His power is not always there. Took a step back sophomore year, hit 286, and this year only in 7 games, so obviously small sample size, 208. But think about a player who hit 345 as a freshman with 13 home runs, which is very, very good for somebody, especially for somebody who hit 345, and athletically is already where you want him to be, or probably even better. Elite speed, really strong throwing arm for somebody that's that, sort of swift and mobile. Could be a 5-tool player, honestly. Power is probably projecting to be average at this point. I think it deserves a little bit more credit than it's been getting. Casey Martin, to me, again, is a project. He's raw. He's more athletic than he is talented. But I think if he can get back to what he was doing freshman year, and I think just in terms of his ceiling and what he's shown an ability to do, I would take a chance on him at 7. And I think he's going to really lead this Arkansas team, and really emerge as the leader with a lot of strong prospects on that squad. 8, I like this player a lot. It's Garrett Mitchell, center fielder from UCLA. Now, interesting story. He was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes in 3rd grade and has been managing that for his entire career. Athletically, just as good as anybody in this class. He runs 70 to 75 run grades on the scouting profiles. His throwing arm is very strong for somebody of that speed. His hit tool is very, very good as well. His freshman year was not great, 280, which is good, 668 OPS. Sophomore year, 349, 984 OPS. Now, what's interesting is 984 OPS, only 6 home runs, had 0 home runs in his freshman year, and has had 0 through 7 games, I think, so far this year for UCLA. But 984 OPS, 6 home runs, speaks to his athleticism, his speed on the base pass, base running ability. According to what I've heard, his intangibles are incredible. His baseball IQ is incredible. He'll be able to hit. He'll probably be able to hit for some level of power. Defensively, I think he could be elite. I think better than a lot of people are giving him credit for. Athleticism, defensive instincts, arm, it's all there to me. I think it's an incredible story. You know, he's been managing this disease for his entire baseball career, basically. And his teammates, his coaching staff, a lot of people talk very, very highly of him as a character, as a person. And he's an incredible athlete with, we've seen an ability to hit 349, 984 OPS. So consistency is his biggest knock, which is why I'm a little bit suspect of taking him this high, but I think his athleticism, his intangibles are high enough or good enough for me as a GM to take a chance on him 8th. Number 9, another chance. There's a lot of guys in here that I'm taking a chance on, and this is not a guy who's high on a lot of lists at all. Tanner Burns, right-handed pitcher from Auburn. I have seen, he, to me, I've been watching him over his college career. I think he has shown signs of being a number 1 starter, of being an ace. He struck out 15 batters in a game in his freshman year. He's been banged up. He's had shoulder problems. His control is good, not great. He's undersized for a guy who throws as hard as he does. I think he's like 92 to 97, something in that range. Good but not great changeup. Breaking ball needs some work, but his control is good. Velo's good. Pitchability is probably his best tool, and he gets players to swing and miss. He gets players to swing and miss. He gets players to make weak contact, and he knows how to really navigate lineups. Pitchability is impressive, and you can't really deny what he's been able to do statistically. I think that Tanner Burns, to me, is a workhorse. I think he is a tough pitcher who's battled injuries and goes deep into ball games and seasons. And if he can stay healthy, we'll give you innings, we'll give you strikeouts, and I think he could be a frontline starter. I really do. And again, taking a chance, especially his durability, he's undersized with already some shoulder issues, so kind of suspect. But I would take that chance because the strikeout rate, combined with the control and pitchability, it's really not something you see very often. So I would take a chance on Tanner Burns, 9th. That was really weird. Okay, look. Now I'm over the time, but I feel like I want to talk about this, and maybe I'll cut it short and talk a little bit more about Spencer Torkelson tomorrow. Now, to me, I've said this to a couple people. This is what a bust looks like, Spencer Torkelson. Now, you'll say, then why is he in your top 10? He's 10th for me. Spencer Torkelson, let's get this out of the way. Freshman year, 1183 OPS. Sophomore year, 1151 OPS. And now in 8 games, so small sample size this season, 1485 OPS with 4 home runs in 8 games. 353 batting average last year, 22 home runs in 57 games or something like that. So that's why he's on this list, because that is incredible. Now, here are the knocks that I have on him. He's in a very, very good system at Arizona State, which boosts offensive numbers. Very good lineup, which also boosts his offensive numbers. The power is obviously there. Now, here's where it gets fishy for me. Little to no athletic ability, let's be honest. Kind of a goofy athlete who does not move well, whose hands are not where we want them to be. I doubt his ability to hit major league pitching. I think he is teeing off on Pac-12 pitching with a metal bat. And obviously the power is going to be there, but I'm not sure he's going to be able to hit at the major league level for contact. And if you optically, and I know that's not fair in a lot of cases, but to me, this is what a bust looks like. A goofy athlete with incredible power in a conference that really boosts offensive numbers. Contact is good, but against high-level pitching, I'm not sure his hands are good enough. I'm not sure he's athletic enough to compensate for the, obviously the step up in competition that he's going to face. If he's doing this in the SEC, maybe, or the ACC, I think differently, but a lot of Pac-12 players put up big numbers. Obviously, these numbers are ridiculous, but this is what busts often look like. These goofy athletes who hit for power in weak conferences. Not that the Pac-12 is weak, but it's an offensive-heavy conference that, is I doubt his ability to hit high level and particularly major league pitching. I think he has a lot of bust potential. Now, I had to put him on this list because if I'm sitting there at 10 with 9 guys going before Spencer Torkelson, I wanted to leave him off this list, but if I'm being honest with myself, if I'm sitting there at 10 and he's still on the board, I'm probably taking that chance. But I would not take him in the top 5 for sure. I think he has the most bust potential of anyone in this draft when you look at expectations versus what I think that he's going to turn out to be. I got to be honest with Spencer Torkelson. I think he's going to continue to hit in college. I think he's going to have a really good season, and I think he's going to be drafted in the top 3. But I don't think he should. I really don't. Maybe that's unfair, but optically, he does not look like a Major League Baseball player. That's just I got to say it. I want to talk about number 11 because this is a guy that does not fit on this list because he is a very safe prospect. His ceiling is pretty low, to be perfectly honest. So I wouldn't take a chance on him really. I wouldn't take him in the top 10 because I don't think he has the, really a potential to change a franchise. But Logan Allen, left-handed pitcher from Florida International, I think has shown really, really, really good things. I think that he has one of the highest floors in this draft. I think he's going to be a 3 starter in the major leagues. I mean, I'm sold on Logan Allen. Pitchability, command is off the charts. He's 90 to 91. He's touched 93 when he's really, reached back. He has a left-handed circle change that induces a lot of soft contact. Obviously, Florida International is not a Power 5 program, so we'd like to see him against better competition. But in the Cape Cod League over the summer or in the fall, summer-fall, did very, very well against high-level offensive players. So Logan Allen, to me, if I'm sitting there at maybe in the 3rd round, I definitely think, if you're looking for a safe left-handed pitcher, I think Logan Allen actually is going to be a really, really productive major league pitcher. And it's tough to analyze baseball players for sure in the draft. But I think if you're looking for a guy who's really going to give you innings, going to induce a lot of soft contact, and if you're looking for a guy who you think, not necessarily willing to take a chance on a guy who might bust, I think Logan Allen has one of the highest floors of any player and especially of any pitcher in this draft. And then a sleeper for me, just to wrap up here. He is very low on a lot of lists. Obviously, being low on a list still means that you're high in the grand scheme. But Jackson Miller, I mean, high school, very raw high school catching prospect. Very raw. But he's more athletic than a lot of catchers in this class. He can really hit for contact, and his power, he's a strong kid. And his power really hasn't shown. But I think once he's raw. His mechanically, he's not particularly sound. I think defensively, he's a project. He has a good arm. His blocking and receiving is not quite where it needs to be. I think athletically, intangibly, I've heard he's extremely good, especially on the base paths. Also working with pitching staffs. I think Jackson Miller who probably will go in the 4th round, maybe 5th round. I think this is one of the players, and there's obviously a ton in baseball of late round steals. I think Jackson Miller is my steal prospect of this draft. Obviously, I'm going to try to come up with more as we get closer, but thus far, and obviously it's difficult to project catchers, especially high school catchers. I think Jackson Miller is a steal, and I would take him honestly in the 2nd round if he were available. I think he has that much potential. Maybe 3rd. I don't think, obviously, I wanted to put him in the top 10, but he's not quite at that level. I think he's the steal of this draft, and there's obviously going to be more. I think Jackson Miller is raw, but very, very good athlete, and catchers are hard to come by, and I think he's going to be a major league starter at some point, and a good one. If I'm looking for a catcher, and I think catching is a very, very interesting position in the draft because obviously it's the most important, especially defensively, and getting a good catcher, especially late in the draft, is extremely useful, and that can change a franchise. We talked about guys that can change a franchise. Getting a catcher can change a franchise, and Christian Vasquez obviously kind of stands out as like that 4th to 5th round guy who wasn't really much of a prospect, but turned out to be an incredible defensive player, turned out to be incredible intangibly, and can hit. Jackson Miller is a good athlete. I think he's intangibly very, very good, and I think once he fills out, once he taps into some of his mechanics a little bit more, I think he's going to be a very, very productive player, and a lot of scouts think he can be a major league starting catcher. So there we go. More draft stuff to come. I'm going to actually do a mock draft later on, which is actually what I think is going to happen. This is what I think should happen. Obviously won't, but more draft stuff, college stuff, high school stuff to come. And obviously let me know in the comments what you guys think about college, high school, that kind of stuff. Because I want to talk about it, but if you guys really don't want to hear it, then that's fine. I'll accept that. But packed show today, obviously we went over, but I had a lot to talk about. We actually did 3 topics only, and it's been an hour and 20 minutes. So, yeah, I mean, we loaded schedule, but yeah, thanks for stopping by. Really, really excited to be back. Again, I apologize for the missed shows last week, but comments, please, for questions that you have for the Q&A. I'm going to do the Q&A when I have enough to talk about. I already have a couple, and I might just roll with that, but obviously the more, the merrier. So thank you so much for stopping by. Drop the sub if you haven't. Drop the like if you haven't. We'll be back at it tomorrow, Tuesday top 10. A lot more stuff to talk about. So hit me up with those comments. I will see you tomorrow. Thank you so much for watching and liking and subbing if you have. I will see you tomorrow. Thank you very much for watching. Peace